Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder what?
Whether she's naked under that toga. She is friend. You know that. I'm Amelia. This is Rob and Liam and Dave, and you're listening to Hey Guys podcast. This week we're looking back at Ghostbusters 2. It might have not been the sequel we all wanted, but it still had rivers of slime, dancing toasters and ghost trains. But how does it hold up? Is it a better sequel than it has credit for, or is it just a poorly conceived follow-up on one of the best movies of the 80s?
Thank you for that, Amelia. That was a great intro, wasn't it? A lot more charming than us two, anyway. Jesus Christ. Oh, I say us two. Dave is also joining us this week. And I'm not sure if we explained it in the intro, why Amelia was doing the intro. It is Dave's daughter, just in case you think it's some random little girl.
Well, we said it last. We said it last week. I'm assuming the people who have picked this up hopefully have listened to last week's episode. Otherwise, yeah, we've just kidnapped some
right to the end. Jesus Christ, that's a big one.
To say. What I want to say, right? I've known your daughter, obviously, for 9 years. When did she become posh?
Well, it does sound quite posh.
Pennyland, darling. We may, but mate, she is super posh.
Yeah, from Pennyland.
It just makes a change from it being American. I'm sure your child will get there at some point.
Oh, but mate,
it's the YouTube effect that
the Americanization of kids. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, do you want what would you prefer, an American kid or a really Cardiff kid? I like having a Welsh accent, but like Cardiff, once you push it over a certain line, it starts getting a little bit grating.
My 4-year-old son is American and Cardiff because he's going for candy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We went trick-or-treating for candy the other day. Like, he had that Cardiff CA, but then he's got
Well, the thing is, I get confused about some things, and we will get to the movie in a second. I had to stop, and I was like, wait a minute, zebra, and I couldn't remember which one was the correct way to say it. I was like, it is zebra, right? Zebra's the Americanization. Anyway.
The one that gets me is oregano or oregano.
Yeah. Cilantro.
Oh, fuck it. Right.
This is a different podcast.
Yes.
Ghostbusters
2. This is an interesting film because when I was doing a lot of reading on this, the suggestion was this is like a really divisive movie. I don't think it's divisive at all. I think nearly everyone agrees that it's not the best sequel in the world, but it's kind of fun. I don't think many people flat out hate this film. There are things in this film which I really don't like, but there's a lot of good stuff in this film. As far as maybe popular opinion has warmed to this film because we've got accustomed to really bad sequels in the last, decade, 20 years, or whatever. But looking back at this film now, yeah, it's not a great sequel. It commits the cardinal sin of trying to basically repeat the finest moments of the first film. But judged on its own merits, this film's fine, right?
So I don't understand the hate for this film, if there is hate out, because I've never known.
Oh, there is hate. Well, there was at least,
but I've never known it. I think it's a perfectly conceived sequel. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've never seen it as much as I've seen the first one, but I think it's a good sequel. I think it's a good film.
I'm going to take it one step further. I actually prefer this to the first one.
Oh. Whoa!
Yeah. When I think of Ghostbusters, I do not think of the first one. I think of this. I think of Statue of Liberty. I'm thinking in the courtroom with the twins flying around in the air. I think Venkman's funnier in this one as well. Some of the one-liners are just amazing. And yes, you know what? It is definitely a bit pared back and a bit more for children. But I don't know whether it's because I saw this more growing up, so I have
could be
kind of feelings about it. But
you said one-liners. This has, and I thought of you straight away the best joke ever in a film, the most low-key joke, and I've missed it every time I've watched it. When they're in Dana's apartment, and Egon says, "I'd like to do gynecological tests on the mother."
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with this film, right? One of my major issues with this film is the tonal inconsistencies. Now, I think pretty much everything after the first Ghostbusters film, they've never recaptured the magic, and I know Dave disagrees to a certain extent, but the magical tone that made the first film so fantastic. And a big part of that was that, and we've mentioned it before, it wasn't primarily aimed at kids. It's not a kid's film. It really is about, almost middle-aged men unwilling to grow up. The closest thing to it in terms of structure, I guess, is actually something like old school, if anything. A bunch of 30-year-olds just unwilling to grow up, and one person who's a stronger character than the rest, dragging them into this ill-conceived idea. Like Ray in the first one, he didn't want to kind of put his home up for like the third mortgage to get into the Ghostbusting business just because Peter Venkman's basically an asshole and a bigger character. Whereas this film, there are hints of the tone from the first film, which is a lot darker in this film and certainly a lot scarier. People forget, like especially the opening of the first film is genuinely quite scary if you're a kid, for instance. But this film, I'd say the first half kind of embraces the tone of the original, and then the second half, bizarrely, goes full Force Awakens in so much that it copies the first film almost wholeheartedly, really encourages, unflattering comparison at every turn. Like there's a point in this film, we'll go to in a moment, a very specific moment where I think the wheels fall off and it just, like I said, the tone goes out the window and it really becomes much more like the cartoons. But to bring it back to your point, there are some like pretty racy jokes. Like you said, there's the gynecology joke in the start. There's the really weird epidermis joke from Egon. The more you think about that joke, the more it's just fucking bizarre, right? He says, I thought women are so interested in that giant cranium of yours. And he says, I think they're more interested in my epidermis. I'm like, isn't that the tube behind your testicles? I'm like, what the fuck, dude? It's so weird. And then you've got Janosch, who's playing it for laughs, whose only character trait I can tell is sex pest. That's it. He is an unthreatening sex pest, but he's a sex pest all the same.
You get full vibes of you completely expect that guy to be cold, clammy, smells slightly, he's just sells that so well.
He smells of sauerkraut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, God knows where he's from. I mean, they even make a joke out of it. Like when they go and see him at the gallery, I think Peter says, where are you from anyway?
Yeah.
I think they were all in on the joke. He's just playing vaguely foreign. That's it.
Can I bring up a couple of things that I noticed right at the beginning of the film? The first one, that weird, that carriage, as soon as she's pushing Oscar in that carriage, there's going to be a horror moment because you do not see a baby pushchair like that and not see some sort of demon.
Oh, the baby pushchair from like 1917.
Yeah, from like Rosemary's Baby.
But 100%.
As she's walking down with the shopping with Oscar on that sidewalk, I'm going to say sidewalk because it's American, and you've got weird altercations happening anyway. You've got that woman in crutches who looks like the guy's going to snatch her purse, but then just runs past her. But then there was two random women in ski outfits carrying skis.
There was.
I've never noticed that before.
I didn't notice that until he said.
And then when you get then to Ray and Winston rocking up at the kids' party, and that little dickhead kid, by the way, is Ivan Reitman's son, I think.
Yeah, he's a right little shitebag, he is.
It's the return of a Hey You Guys all-star for us as well. Mary Ellen Trainor.
She pops up in all the best films. She often only plays a small role, but if you're a kid of like the 80s and early 90s, chances are she's in 90% of the movies you.
So I wrote down, right, because why I say she's an all-star, because we've covered her in Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Goonies, Scrooged, The Monster Squad, Back to the Future 2. Like this one,
she's in loads, and she's one of those ones. Like even as you list those off, if you haven't seen these films, exactly, Dave can't think what we're talking about.
The psychiatrist from Lethal Weapon.
Oh, okay,
yeah. She's one of those women. Like if I suddenly showed you a clip of those films, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course. She's like the ultimate that woman from 80s cinema. She's just in everything. But that's like that intro suggests, I think, again, a darker tone. Like, you don't see the ghost. It's just the baby carriage kind of being dragged along. It's almost like classic horror kind of thing in many respects. And you get the music. I'm like, dude, I'm totally on board with this. And like I said, it just keeps losing its way. And I do blame the tonal change in many respects on the popularity of the real Ghostbusters. Like that, people forget that ran for 7 seasons. There was 140 episodes. And it ran from 86 until just after this. I mean, a lot of people blame, like, basically Ghostbusters disappearing for nearly 30 years on this film. And it's a weird one because if you look back, again, I think everyone assumes it was a bomb and it was this critical, like, it was slammed. But you look back, like, the reviews were, like you said, at worst mixed. It made loads of money. And the big issue with it is simply that Bill Murray didn't like it. Like if Bill Murray had been like, oh yeah, let's just roll out another third film, and the third film had been decent, I don't think there would be such a big deal about the second film. And to bring it back to what you said, I think most people would be like, oh, this film's pretty decent. And I think it's easier to go back and, as we said, judge it on its own merits now, because there is more Ghostbusters. Like, for a long time, I think the cloud that hung over this film was that this was the film that ostensibly killed Ghostbusters. And all of us really wanted Ghostbusters 3, and it just never happened because, and again, it wasn't because this film fucking tanked. It was because Bill Murray wasn't fussed on it, and everyone was like, we can't do this without Bill Murray. It's fucking Bill Murray's fault.
I think that's that's a problem, isn't it? That's Bill Murray took a dislike to this film because I can't see what's wrong with it. It's interesting what you said then about the real Ghostbusters, because that's why Janine looks like she does now, because they dressed her up to be more like her real Ghostbusters counterpart. Yeah,
it's the same with them. I thought they might have done the same with Egon. Egon's hair is higher in this film than it was in the first one, and I think it's a nod to the cartoon because, again, it's easy to forget that the cartoon was that popular. Honestly, I didn't know that there was 140 episodes because I remember really liking the cartoon. But I'm not sure if it was the same for you. I kind of associated it with renting out the video. So I feel like I've seen like 6 episodes of The Real Ghostbusters 100 times. But if you'd said how many episodes were there, I would have been like, I don't know, 20, 30 max? Fucking 140.
Didn't they fight Freddy Krueger?
I have no idea. Maybe they did.
I'm sure they fought Freddy Krueger.
That is awesome if they did. Do you actually know why it's called The Real Ghostbusters rather than Ghostbusters?
Yeah, because the other cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was because of Filmation was making a cartoon revamp of their 1975 live-action series, The Ghostbusters, due to disagreements with Columbia over animation rights. So it's a bit of a dick move, actually, them calling themselves The Real Ghostbusters. It's like, yeah, they've got the name, but we're The Real Ghostbusters.
Do you know that other Ghostbusters one? No. It was about 3 or 4 guys in like a convertible hot rod and a monkey.
Was it a gorilla? I think it might
a gorilla going around fighting ghosts.
Do you know the bizarre thing is?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Well, that's the weird thing, right? Obviously now we can just check that on the internet. When I was younger, I had Ghostbusters on VHS, and I mean the Filmation version. And I was just like, I didn't know what it was. I bought it because it had Ghostbusters on it. I was like, this isn't Ghostbusters. Why the fuck is there a monkey in it? And to this day, it was only now I'm doing the research for it. I was like, I had no idea there was a live action 1975 version, which also had a gorilla in it, or an ape, or whatever the fuck it was.
Showing Dave the picture now. Yes, the gorilla is the one driving.
Why are they in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
I don't know, but the gorilla's the one driving.
It's really strange. If you guys listening to this haven't had a chance to look at it, look up 1975 Ghostbusters or Ghostbusters the Animated Series, not the real Ghostbusters. But it brings it back to our point that in many respects, this film clashes with itself in terms of tone. The first half feels more like a classic Ghostbusters film, and to my mind, it's a much better movie, the first half in particular. The second half goes full cartoon, and on the whole, I suppose, it means we have a movie that feels like it's aimed more towards kids. But we can find out if it was indeed aimed towards kids because we spoke to a kid about this, and we can find out what she thought about it.
Yeah, we spoke to Amelia and asked her what she thought about this film, why she liked this film, and actually if she preferred this film or the original. So I'm going to play that now, and we'll find out what she thought. Okay, so we're going to actually get to hear from Amelia now herself and find out why she likes this film, or more importantly, what parts she liked about this film. So you've got a little list, Amelia. Yeah. So do you want to just read the list off for me, what you liked about the film?
I liked the dancing toaster, the odd guy, the cute baby, and hypnotised Ray.
Okay, so I mean, everyone likes the dancing toaster. It's a great song to start off with, and the toaster just bopping around. We probably already mentioned this between me, Liam, and your dad anyway. So the odd guy, you're not on about Peter Venkman, are you?
No, the curator in the museum.
Oh, okay, the odd guy. So why is... I mean, I know why he's odd, but why is he odd to you?
Because when he got zapped in the eyes from the painting, was he hypnotised or something?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. To be fair, I think he's possessed.
So mind control.
Yeah, so hypnotised is probably the better word, yeah. Mind control, hypnotised, just takes over him and makes him do his bidding. And kidnaps a baby. You said cute baby.
Because he's stuck in a painting, so he can't do anything.
No. Yeah. Cute baby, so Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah. What parts were cute about him?
Well, all parts of them.
Just because he was a baby.
He just likes babies, don't you? I've got a question for you. Do you think he took a poo in Peter Venkman's lovely jumper?
The green jumper that you didn't want him to? I bet he did. Yeah, I bet he did. Did you know that baby was played by 2 babies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we saw at the end, didn't we?
You saw the credits, yeah. And what was the other thing we had then?
Hypnotized Ray.
So, at the end when Ray became...
So he looks... it's sort of halfway through, isn't it?
Yeah,
Ray's looking at the
eyes.
painting, and he sort of gets funny, and
and his tongue is sticking out.
His tongue was sticking out.
Yeah. I wonder, because I wonder if that all started from the River of Slime, because Ray was down the River of Slime, so maybe that had an effect on him that he was able to be taken over quite quickly. But he looked quite funny then, didn't he? With his hair at the end, and he looked a bit like half Vigo, half baby, half Ray thing. It was a bit weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you chose this film because obviously we've already done Ghostbusters, so you like Ghostbusters. Are you looking forward to the new one that's coming out?
Yes.
Yeah? Have you seen the trailer for that yet?
No.
Thank you for picking this one. It was a really good film. Thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it.
Which, out of the two, which one is your favourite?
The first one.
You prefer the first one?
You prefer the first one?
Because there's more ghosts in it.
More ghosts. So it's because this one is more about, I guess, the slime and everything else. To be fair, I believe this one was more kid-orientated, but it's quite interesting because you like the first one, which I think we all did. I think the unanimous decision is this is still a good film, but the first one is better. Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wicked. We'll try and get you on again next time we do a film that you like. But thank you for doing this for us, Amelia. Yeah. And we'll make sure that your dad plays this part for you, okay?
Okay.
But nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah. Why aren't you allowed to join the rest of the podcast, Amelia?
Because there's a lot of swearing.
From Liam.
And you.
Silly boys.
Yeah.
Silly boys. Okay, then that's great. High five. Well done.
Yeah, see, so she's got great taste. She was like, yeah, the first film is better. It's just Dave. I cannot believe your daughter prefers Ghostbusters 1 and you prefer Ghostbusters 2. That is fucking bananas. That is up there with Rob, like hating The Shining but loving Doctor Sleep. It's bananas.
That's just because she's more grown up than I am.
Yeah, maybe it is.
I wanted to say, right, there's a reason for that. Ghostbusters 2 is more about the set pieces. You've already said it. When you think about Ghostbusters, you think about the Statue of Liberty, the courtroom scene. It's all these set pieces. It's not, they just take these set pieces and you just have this link that goes from one set piece to the next. And I think that's why that's basically a kid thing to do, is just have these things in between. I think that's why you like it and why Amelia prefers the other one.
The thing is, it just moves, like, it feels like a movie, the first film, about a bunch of guys doing something interesting. Whereas, like you said, this film feels like a bunch of set pieces. And a lot of it, like I said, the big issue, and it's hard to judge it because, of course, everything that does is inviting comparison to the first film. And it's like we mentioned earlier, you do get these weird sex jokes early in the film. Like, they really do imply that Egon is sleeping with the slime, for instance. And when I say sleeping, I mean, make no mistake, they're implying...
No, Ray.
It's Ray.
Well, both of them.
No, I think it's both of them.
But there was a look, but it's Ray. They're implying that Ray is the one fucking...
He definitely fucked the slime, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was like...
He fucked the poltergeist in the first film, didn't he? This dude is dipping his wick wherever he can. That scene...
of course, yeah, he did have sex with a poltergeist in the first film as well.
That scene where they do the toaster... Which, again, Amelia said she loved that scene. That toaster dancing is really... It kind of takes you out of it when you see the solenoid thing popping.
Yeah.
And you can see... But would you eat that toast?
No.
The toast that comes out.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Why have they put toast in? Why have they put bread in there? Sorry,
and
first of all.
Any time any good bit of music comes on, your body starts shaking. You start walking down the road. And you don't know why.
Although that brings up to an interesting point. When I think of this film, especially the more positive aspects of this film, do you know what I think of? I think of music. Like, there are two versions of Higher and Higher played in this film. There's the Jackie Wilson version, which is used for the toaster sequence, which clearly is the better version. And then they used the Hunsbury version for the the Statue of Liberty sequence. So it's the same song used in the film twice, but it's sung by two different people.
I honestly thought it was Jackie Wilson both times.
Yeah, so did I.
No. The second one by Hunsbury is the only one that's on the official soundtrack as well. Jackie Wilson's not on the soundtrack, which is absolutely bananas because it's the better version. Although I do love that Statue of Liberty sequence, which we'll get to in a moment.
But we go too far off. I was just going to say, I jotted down a couple of points why I like this movie a bit more than the first one.
Oh, here we go. He's just been sitting there saying, I have to justify this.
Well, yeah,
I have to justify it.
I mean, the music was one of the things. I mean, the music is epic in this film.
It is good. Fantastic. That soundtrack is great. Not soundtrack, the score.
Yeah.
The score is great.
The score is great.
I like the songs too.
The tunes match the atmosphere perfectly, don't they? And it drives through the film. It's great. One big thing, I liked Egon and Winston's character development, right? Because I think in the first one, Egon is just a straight guy who just delivers scientific facts, and that's literally the only reason he's there.
Yeah.
And Winston felt a bit like a racial afterthought.
Well, it was, because basically, so it was Eddie Murphy, you know that anyway. Yeah. It was meant to be Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy pulled out. They went, all right, we'll get some no-name guy, and we'll cut his 120 pages down to like 10, I think it was.
Yeah, so like it always just felt like, it's a very white movie, and we should probably throw a black guy in there. Don't give him anything to say. Whereas, in this one, he still doesn't have loads to say, but,
He doesn't at all. I still think he's really sidelined in this film.
Yeah, because they leave him out. They leave him out at the whole river of slime scene, which means he's not in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, then he just appears again. And then they give him that scene in the train. When he gets to... And I love that voice.
Hello!
When he goes... Like, why the fuck's it calling? Sorry, what else?
But Egon, I love the look on his face when Sigourney kisses him.
Yeah.
She kisses him on the cheek. I mean, he looks like he's never been touched by a woman before in his life.
Yeah.
It's great, And there's all these little comments, like the epididymis, it's great.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. I think it's a funnier film. A lot more of the one-liners. I just love Bill Murray. Bill Murray is brilliant in pretty much everything I've ever seen of him, but he is the making of Ghostbusters for me. I love it. I think Vigo is a much better bad guy than Zool ever was. Because let's face it, Zool was basically Ziggy Stardust with some anger issues.
No, it was Gozer.
Gozer. And for all the scare him and everything's terrible, all they did was a homoerotic crossing of the streams, and off it popped.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a duff ending for me.
I disagree with everything he says.
So I want to mention Vigo, but you go.
No, that's pretty much.
So I wanted to make a joke about Vigo, right? Vigo looking like Carl from Die Hard. And then I did
He totally does.
Yeah, he does. But then I did a bit of investigation into it. Vigo is played by a character from Die Hard. But it was the guy that shoots the rocket launcher at Al.
So his name's Wilhelm von Homburg, who plays Vigo, which is a fantastic name. But the one thing I didn't know about good old Wilhelm von Homburg is that he doesn't voice the character. No. It's voiced by Max von Sydow. And once you hear it, you're like, you can't unhear it. It's like, of course it is.
Do you know who else didn't know that?
Who's that?
Wilhelm van Hilberg. Because when he went to the premiere and he heard his voice was dubbed, he walked out.
No way.
There's no way. I'd be over the moon if I thought I was going to speak and then you hear Max von Sydow, the scourge of Carpathia, the sorrow of Moldavia, command you. Oh, command me, Lord. All that shit. I would fucking love that. I know the last bit was Janosch, but you know what I mean.
I made a note that Vigo looks really scary when he's in the painting. But when he comes to life, he looks like what I'd imagine a Latvian nana to look like.
Yeah, a little bit. And there's one bit in particular
and he also
where his hair
looks like he's cosplaying. It's really, really, he stay in the painting, dude. Control from the painting. Because he doesn't look.
The worst thing I can say is that baby actually looks. You know when they kind of do the overlay at the end of the film when like Vigo's becoming the baby. I was just like, dude, you don't even need that. The baby looks like Vigo. I'm sorry. That is when. Well, there's actually two of them. They are two ugly ass.
I love it. Did we all shake our heads when Amelia said the cute baby, and we all said, "Oh yeah, it was a cute baby," because I don't want to destroy a 9-year-old's
ugly as sin.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, Peter Beckman got it right.
It's like when my baby was born, everyone said my baby looked cute. Mate, he looked like a fucking potato.
They all look like Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
He's not Elephant Man ugly, but he's not attractive. It totally sums it up.
And do you think Dave asked a good question to Amelia, right? And we kind of think he did. Did he shit in the jersey?
Hells yes.
I'm not sure if he was telling the truth. If that jersey actually was from Joe Namath, by modern day standards with sports memorabilia and everything, it would be worth a fortune. If you could prove that was a Joe Namath worn New York Jets jersey, it'd be worth thousands.
You know what
even if it was covered in baby shit.
He said, I got this from a girl who got it from Joe Namath. I'd like to think he was fucking a girl who said, oh, look at my Joe Namath shirt, and he ran away with it. I'd like to think he stole it from that girl and just never called her back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It seems like a Venkman move.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I can't remember what I was talking about.
Maybe shat in that jumper. Definitely. Yeah. In that jersey, should I say.
But at least we all agree on the music, at least. So that's something. So you got the two Higher and Higher songs. You got On Our Own by Bobby Brown, which, whatever you say about Bobby Brown, that is an absolute it's such a banger, and it's easy to forget how famous Bobby Brown is. They play that song, I think, 3 times during the movie. One time they play it while Bobby Brown makes a cameo. So he makes a cameo in the movie, and they're playing his song while he cameos. That's how fucking baller Bobby Brown was in 1989, before all it kind of went off the rails, to say the least. But, you know, Run DMC's on the soundtrack. It's obviously it's very 1989, but like I said, it absolutely suits the tone of the movie.
Ray Parker Jr. really quickly as well. Who are you going to call? He-Man!
Well, it's weird because there's a whole bunch of meta moments. It's like their suits have the Ghostbusters 2 symbol on them, as in Ghostbusters 2. And at the start, they're dancing. So it's a great start to the film in many respects. Like the whole idea that they basically went out of business. Like everyone had this like televised fever dream, and everyone's like, wait a minute. I know we saw it, but we're all agreeing that's bullshit. And you can imagine the right-wing Christians coming out and, you know, them getting sued by the whole country and them just being, well, fucked. And then more and more people are, like, questioning themselves. Because obviously the idea is that once Gozer was vanquished, that the ghost went away. It's like, did they just set this all up? So, of course, they're out of business. But when they're doing their dance at the start, they're dancing to Ray Parker Jr.'s song. So the idea is that Ray Parker Jr. also recorded a Ghostbusters song in that universe. So there's a bunch of weird meta.
They probably had a good run after. Like,
I don't think
they saved New York. We recorded a song, but then all of a sudden, there's no more ghosts or anything. Like
exactly, and that's when all the questions start coming out and stuff, and the fundamentalists start questioning.
But it makes
then the lawsuits,
because they mentioned about that when in the third film, the one set in a small town about Egon's death. Paul Rudd goes on about the Gozer attack, because this is about Gozer. So even they have forgotten about the slime on the museum and everything. And he doesn't mention the fact the Statue of Liberty walked down Main Street. So even the third film is forgetting the second film. So, I mean,
again,
Liam's not the only one who wants to forget Ghostbusters 2, but...
Well, it's another weird nod. As I mentioned, this, in many respects... This film reminds me so much of Force Awakens. You know, they're kind of retconning this whole universe that everyone's forgotten about the Jedi and everyone's forgotten about the Ghostbusters. And it's similar structurally, they're really similar. Like the first half of Force Awakens is so good that rewatching it, you almost forget that the second half is so derivative. And I had the exact same issue here. I actually think the first 45, 50 minutes of this film are really fucking good. And in many respects, a perfect sequel. And I think the tone is just where I wanted it to be. But the second half, it has so many issues. And you mentioned the whole crossing the streams thing. I think it's one of the things lacking in the second film. Like, there's no threat in the finale to this film. They just kind of shoot the painting, everything's fine. You get the Statue of Liberty, but it doesn't really do much. Like, you think about the end of the first one, it's basically... narratively, they're in the exact same setup, but there's the threat that, oh, well, if we cross the streams, we're all going to die instantaneously. And at the same time, you've got the Stay Puft Marshmallow on fire climbing the building. In this, you just get the weird Ray thing. They shoot the painting, credits. Actually, no, not credits. First, the fucking painting, which I despise. I fucking despise that painting.
Right. Stop talking.
Credits.
Stop talking. What do you mean, no threat?
There's no threat at the end of the film.
There's no threat. They're about to get crushed. Baby Oscar's about to get taken over. The only way they can save themselves is because New York comes together and sings a song.
Oh, how many times are we going to fucking have that with New York film? It's in every Spider-Man film. Hey, we're from New York, but, you know, we're nice today, so everything's cool. Go fuck yourself. We know you hate each other, but you're nice. It's like, how many films are we going to fucking do this in? It's like, I've had a tits full of this. I love New York on screen.
They did the latest one they did. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated film that's just been released. New York came together again to fight a massive superfly.
Dude, it's ridiculous. Right, honestly, right, when you go into the end of the film, because I thought it was going to get great again, because when they go to the Statue of Liberty, and they shoot it all with goop, and we'll get why there's a massive issue with this. But before I thought about it, I was just like, they shoot with goop, they add the microphones, and then that fucking song kicks in, and it's amazing. It's amazing. It's such a feel-good moment, which obviously it's supposed to be in the film. But then they immediately fuck everything up by cutting to Lois Tully, becoming a Ghostbuster, and it just speaks to the problems that this film has. Lois Tully in the first film, or Lewis Tully, or whatever you want to call
him. Lewis?
It's Lewis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lewis, yeah. He's supposed to be lame in the first film. And he is. Like, the whole idea is you're laughing at him. In this film, they try and make him adorable. The whole love thing with Janine feels like a straight from the cartoon. It's appalling. It doesn't need to be in this film. That time should be spent on Winston rather than those two. Janosch, I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. And right, put this way. I was listing the things which are exactly the same. So you've got Kurt Fuller instead of William Atherton. Kurt Fuller is fine. He's a decent actor. He's no William Atherton, as we all know, is the greatest 80s shite bag of all time. That's without question.
Yes, this man has no dick.
Exactly. You have the mental hospital instead of the prison. You have Flying Janos, instead of the giant dogs. You have, remember I Believe in Magic, that amazing sequence in the first film with like the music and all the ghosts coming out of the floor. They copy that, but it's just a shit version of it. You have the Statue of Liberty instead of Stay Puft, and you have Vigo instead of Gozer. It's the second half of this film is exactly the same. They just
why did Janos turn himself into a murderous Mary Poppins?
That was terrible because they had to give him something to do. Oh,
you didn't like that, did you?
I fucking hate that. I hate everything.
I totally agree with you.
So you like this film, but you hate
I love that film, but I hate. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
In hate Spider.
No, that's.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. That sequence is terrible. The sequence with Jack, like, why is he suddenly being turned into a ghost? Like, when he's been, and fair play, it was Amelia who said he's not. What is he? He's mind washed or whatever it was.
Hypnotized, she said.
Yeah. Hypnotized, yes. Sorry, that's much mind wash. Where am I going with that? Right. I get the idea that he needs somebody, a human, to do his bidding to get the baby. All of a sudden, though, why does he have lights for eyes? Totally pointless. He doesn't need them in the hallway.
Really handy, though.
Kind of
in the blackout,
like looking under the sofa when you've dropped something. Really handy.
Why can he turn into a ghost nanny at the end? I don't fucking know, and it looks terrible.
Because he's able to elongate his body as well and grab Oscar. It's very odd.
It just speaks to a bunch of comedic characters forced into this film. Like I said, I don't like to speak ill of Rick Moranis because he's one of my favorite 80s actors. He's given far too much screen time in this, and it just doesn't work. The whole love interest thing with Janine feels absolutely forced. Were they staying behind when she was seeing the baby to carry on fucking? I don't know what the hell, or at least dry humping on the sofa.
They ruined your name, Jersey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Clean up.
Yeah.
I know. I do agree with you. Moranis didn't need to be in it as much, but I did like it when Venkman's feeding him lines in the court.
Yeah,
there was a couple of
no idea what's going on.
I love that scene when he's doing that, and then they ask him a question. Lewis looks to Venkman, and Venkman goes, "We've helped them enough already."
Yeah, I because you mentioned it earlier, I do like that sequence at the start of the film in terms of the first big set piece, and it takes a while because for 35 minutes they're not the Ghostbusters. It's like we're going to go back to square one. They're not the Ghostbusters again, rerunning the first film. Peter and Dana have broken up, so we're going to have to get those two back together again. It's like, all right, we're doing this again. But then once they do have the sequence in the courtroom, it is cool. My big issue is it's a bit too broad comedically for my taste, but it's fun. I'll give you that much.
You didn't like the Do Re Egon line.
I did. No, I did like the Do Re Egon.
Yeah.
To this day, if I hear Do Re, I do say Egon.
Say Egon. Yeah. Because this is his wry little smile as well after he says, he's like, fuck you, I've grown up in the last 5 years. You will not tell me what to do.
And one thing I never picked up before is just ever so slight misogynistic undertones in what Venkman says quite often.
Oh, yes.
Dude, that's what
the 80s.
Bethan hates Peter Venkman. That's her issue with both Ghostbusters films. She says she fundamentally likes the film, but she hates Bill Murray because she's like, Peter Venkman's a bellend, but nobody seems to care. He is hysterical. A dickhead.
When he
is funny,
but he just goes kitten.
Yeah, but see, we're all laughing at it. But see, if you're a woman watching that, I totally get how you'd be like, wait a minute, why is he getting away with this?
Oh, yeah.
He's a fucking asshat.
From a female point of view, it's fundamentally wrong about what he does.
But it's hysterical.
And believe me,
this isn't it? And they're outside and they say, come on, we're going to go down and see what's happening in the sewers. And she walks off and he just goes, women.
Well, like you said, this isn't some bleeding hearts thing. I never noticed it. I was like, Peter Venkman's the fucking man. I was like, I love this guy. And it was only when I was watching the first one with Beth and she was like, I can't stand him. I was like, who? It's like Peter Venkman. I was like, you don't like Bill Murray in this film. And then I stopped and thought about it from a woman's perspective, something obviously I very rarely do. And I was like, oh yeah, he's quite the fucking shite bag. So yeah, I kind of get it.
Wait, can I change the subject a little bit? Where's the slime coming from?
Nobody knows.
So the slime's obviously going towards the museum. because that's where Vigo is at the moment. So he's controlling the slime.
It's feeding off the bad feelings of New York.
But where's it originating from?
No, I think it's actually being created by the bad vibes. Yeah. I think it's like the physical manifestation of bad vibes. The only thing I think we really need to ask about the slime is when it comes out of the bathtub, does it look delicious? Yeah. There's something about it,
like an angel delight quality.
Yeah. When it comes out the tap, because later in the film, it takes more of a raspberry jam color. But when it comes out of the tap, it looks more like a kind of strawberry, the kind of sweet you have as a kid. I was like, that looks kind of fucking delicious.
Amelia did say this. She's like, why is it a different color every time they use it? I was like, I think a lot of the time, like when it's in the river, it's deep, it's thick, it's got walls around it, so it's a sort of a deeper, darker colour, and when it's in a little jar, then it looks a bit more see-through. But I thought it was quite good of a 9-year-old to question why it was different.
I'm glad she didn't have the same question I did about the colour. Like when you positively charge it, it comes out looking like aged jizz, I think.
Like age.
If that's what aged jizz looks like in your, I think you need to see a doctor.
I mean, I've never kept jizz in a tank, but that's what.
Yeah, I was going to say. I got to be honest. I'm not sure what aged. What constitutes aged jizz? I would constitute aged jizz as anything in my personal vicinity that's older than 10 seconds long. If it's been round you for a minute, it's aged jizz for sure.
And if it's pink, there's something wrong with it.
Oh yeah, that is a health issue which you need to go to the doctor about.
The viscosity of when they were shooting the Statue of Liberty, and again,
dude, listen.
Full of.
Rob, I think,
I know,
dude. I think that might be blood in your jizz, dude. Just to be clear, I think you need to see a doctor. I mean, I would keep it as well. If it came out that color, I was like, holy shit, I need to keep this and take it to a doctor immediately. I certainly wouldn't jar it and stick it in the kitchen.
Australian comic, I forget his name, Jeff
Foxworthy.
No, the one we went to watch. Jim Jeffries. Jim Jeffries had a great joke about it. He said, I say great joke. He said, I found out I was ill when I ejaculated blood. Oh my God.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, that makes me think that'll
do it.
Yeah, that's what that looks like. But I don't understand how they positively charge the slime for a start.
Be nice to it, I think, isn't it?
Is it?
I think that's it. Yeah. That's all they do. Yeah, like with the toaster sequence, you just play Jackie
to it. So Ray fucks it.
Ray fucked it.
Makes it look like aged jizz.
Yeah,
and then they shoot it inside a giant 700-year-old French woman.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right, just to be and this is one of my big issues with this film.
Walking her through the harbour wash the jizz away, the slime away?
Well, right, there's a huge number of problems with that sequence. One, have you guys been to the Statue of Liberty?
No.
Well, you can see it in the film as well. Be there. One thing this film doesn't take into account that the Statue of Liberty is on a giant plinth, and it looks like that first step. That first step's a doozy. When it walks away, like there is a plinth which is at least what I'd say like half the size of the Statue of Liberty. Does it just fall the fuck? Does it, climb down? I don't think that NES arcade stick and its 2 buttons has the dexterity to this is going to climb off and then walk.
I love the fact that they were like, right, we're going to have to explain that we can control it. We'll just use a computer joystick and then never explain how that connects to anything other than something just
plugged it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's a way of getting past it.
I also love the fact you just called it jizz now.
Oh, well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, the weirdest thing is I'd never noticed it before. I'd never questioned it. But the time in the finale of this film is absolutely insane. So, right, it's New Year's Eve. It's clearly already night, and they're trying to get into the gallery or whatever you want to call it, the museum. So they go up to the door and they start zapping it. Dana's already in there with the baby, so it's kind of already happening. We have to assume it's, I'll give them best case scenario, a couple of hours to midnight, yeah? They zap the goo, the jizz, whatever you want to call it, on the side. It doesn't have an effect. They all then have their epiphany, which suggests they've never thought about it before. They're like, oh, we'll find something good, something pure. They look at it. Oh, the Statue of Liberty. So in 2 hours, they travel from central New York. They get on a boat. They go out to Liberty Island. Before they do that, they get all their equipment. They get the goop stuff. They get a music system. They cart that across. They create and set up a control system based on an NES arcade stick. They attach that to the inside of the Statue of Liberty. They then bring the Statue of Liberty to life in admittedly glorious fashion. She then walks across the harbour back to Manhattan Island, and they go back to the museum. This happens in what, 2 fucking hours?
And also,
out of your mind.
Rewinding that, the one thing you did miss, they sprayed every inch of her from the inside.
Dude, that would take weeks. It's huge.
From her toes to her crown, they sprayed with
those two cannons.
Yeah.
You're telling me those two backpacks had enough goop to cover the Statue of Liberty? It makes no sense. I appreciate the payoff is magnificent, but another one of those issues is you get the Statue of Liberty, it looks amazing, you're like, okay, yeah, they're doing a kind of throwback to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but it's an awesome throwback. It looks fantastic. What does it do? It gets there, it breaks a window, that's it, job done.
And then you see it lying on the floor outside.
And then it just fucking walks back.
It was like Planet of the Apes at that point, wasn't it?
What I loved as well, it looked fantastic up until she was walking down Main Street and it was clearly a woman in a toga painted green.
I still thought it looked okay. You are right.
They probably used lead paint back then.
I just like the fact that he says that we should have padded the feet, and he's like, I don't think they make Nikes in her size.
But when they show her feet, it clearly looks like Nikes that they sprayed green anyway, because...
Well, this is 1989. This is the era of Batman wearing Reebok pumps, This is, it was a bit more of a do-it-yourself kind of period of cinema. But it's weird that we've come this far and not really actually mentioned Peter McNichol as Jonas Pohar. Like, did you mention earlier that you don't like him in this film?
I hate him. I hate everything about him. I hate his accent. He just looks like a creepy Simon and Garfunkel guy. Everything about him annoys me. Then when he dresses up as a weird, creepy woman and floats in, and he's just got that menacing-looking grin on his face, and
it's a good point.
I like about him at all.
Yeah, like honestly though, I know I was kind of half joking earlier, but does he do anything? Like, what is his aim in this movie beyond I know Vigo wants him to go snatch a baby, but other than that. All he wants to do is fuck Dana.
Yeah,
so he is a slime. But if you take Jonas, and it's only Janosch, it's only because Janosch looks like Janosch. He's like 5'4". He weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. If Janosch was 6'4" and weighed 18 stone and was acting the same, this film would be creepy as fuck. If some unit was, oh hey Dana, it's like the lights out. It's fucking horrible.
You just basically described me.
Well, I'm not right. If they put you in the movie and you put on the weird Eastern European accent and just
try, can't do the accents.
Yeah, and just started to try. Well, neither can he. And try to nail Dana Barrett for a whole film, and you 6'4" fucking unit standing in the door frame. Hey, Dana, you'd be like, man, is this film about ghosts or sexual assault? It's really weird.
Should he know where she lives? Like, I appreciate he's her boss, but...
Yeah, he's got payroll. He can find out. I mean,
my boss doesn't know, right?
My boss... Well, I don't know. I've never seen my boss outside my house, so that's a good thing. But what's really, creepy, it said, before he even gets taken over by Vigo, he's just a sex pest. He just wants...
Yeah. Nothing changes about him after he gets hypnotized, possessed, whatever you want to call it. He's the same fucking guy. Like, he takes a slightly different... A baby... A baby. But it's basically, okay.
Irish.
He's whatever the fuck he is, it doesn't matter. Basically, he's already agreed to kidnap the baby, and he wanted to fuck Dana. He gets zapped and possessed. What's the difference? He still wants to fuck Dana, and he still wants to...
In his defense, I think if I was working with Sigourney Weaver in the late 80s, I think I'd want to fuck her as well. So, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
That's why. No. Also, when he said baby in that Irish accent then, did you think of I kicked the baby? That joke between me and Dave.
It did sound quite Irish, didn't it? Jesus Christ. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They're aware of, obviously, some people wanting to have sex with Sigourney Weaver in the late 80s because there is no need for her to take her top off during the bath scenes. It's like, oh, splash, mummy, I'm going to take my top off. It's very much a callback to Alien and her for no reason having the tiniest pair of underwear.
I think she was going to actually get in the bath with him.
What's that, sorry?
I think she was going to get in the bath with him.
I think she was just having you can make an argument for it, but I don't think she really needed to take her top off beyond the fact that, it'd be cool if Sigourney Weaver took her top off. Well, I think that is literally it.
Dave's not going to argue with you.
I'm not going to argue. She's a handsome woman, as they say. She's a handsome woman.
I don't know what it was about the 80s. It was a confusing time for me, but I did like a strong woman. There was Sigourney Weaver. There was Sarah Connor. Not even Sarah Connor 1, Sarah Connor T2.
Yeah. Oh, pull up Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor fuck you up, Sarah Connor.
I think I wanted to be dominated by a large
Absolutely
woman.
You did. In terms of the most dominant female characters on screen, I mean, you are talking Ripley. I assume you preferred Ripley in Aliens rather than Alien as well. Shorter haircut, tougher.
I did. Although the little pants, I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Was there a rumor that supposedly she didn't shave her lower area and they had to like airbrush it out of all the cells or something like that? Supposedly the director was complaining about it. I'm not sure if that's one of those things I've read on the internet and it was made up or if it's true. Anyway, let's move on just in case it is made up.
So I want to move it. Do you know when Janine's locking up the firehouse just before she goes to babysit Oscar?
Mm-hmm.
I love the weird, like, I didn't even know this was a thing in the 80s. Covering up your computer with the tarpaulin.
Well, they used to cost like 10 grand back then, I suppose. So maybe
she put a dust sheet over it. What was that about?
I can imagine that. Well, people in America as well, like there's more of a thing for like having plastic sheets on their sofas and stuff. It just seems to be more of a thing. But I can imagine back in 1989, it would have been considered this like high-tech thing. It was like, oh, we've got a computer, so we've got to make sure it stays protected. I don't know. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but it's still mental all the same.
Yeah.
Oh, the one cool thing they do introduce in this film, and it's a shame because it gets forgotten because they go back to the normal suit later because obviously it's more iconic. The slate grey suits that they use for part of this film, they're actually pretty badass. I think if you remove the fact that the lighter kind of khaki suits are more iconic, you can make an argument for the slate grey suits actually looking cooler. It's just not quite as iconic as this.
I prefer that as one of the upgrades. The upgrade that I really didn't like was what they did to Ecto 1. Like they seem to just put more shit on top of it for no apparent reason,
and some stickers on the side.
Yeah,
it just didn't look cool.
Not at all. And why did they still have the firehouse? If they've lost all their business, did they still live in the firehouse? That wasn't explained as well.
Well, he had three. So
yeah,
maybe he lived there. Yeah.
It sounded like they were still kind of working as Ghostbusters, and that was maybe part of the job. Was
because he had Razor Cult, didn't he?
Yeah,
he had the shop.
Yeah. And, well, I think that was maybe a side
Egon was working
in university,
being a dick. We've kept them waiting for 2 hours for marriage counselling. Yeah. Let's give this little girl a puppy. Let's see what happens if we take away the puppy. Egon, you're a prick, dude.
He is a prick. And let's be clear, doing 2 experiments at the same time, that's not very professional. I don't think you can do that. But yeah, I get the impression maybe they've still got the firehouse because basically we're seeing the tail end of things. So they've slowly been going out of business. Things have been getting worse and worse. And them doing the party with the kids is them hitting rock bottom. It's like, oh, we have to find some kind of income. Obviously, Ray's not as committed before. He's got Razor Cult, which is a very cool store by the way. So I can imagine it'd be one of those cool ones. Like if you had like nowadays, you might have a graphic novel which kind of explains the last 5 years and how everything went so wrong.
Did the firehouse have a roof again? Because
no, it got blown off, didn't it?
I would assume so, because all you see is the containment unit go nuts, and then you just see all those things shoot up into the sky. So I'm assuming the roof got fucked.
Oh, no, you literally do see the roof get blown off in the first one. It's the I Believe in Magic sequence.
Oh, okay.
You see the roof get blown off and all the spirits kind of escape. So yeah, they had to fix that for sure. That wouldn't have come cheap. Jesus Christ. That's not covered by insurance. That is the quintessential act of God. So you're not going to see a penny on that, sadly.
But, unless this God being Gozer.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? I just want to be clear. I did enjoy this film. I know I've shat on it quite a bit. I think the first half in particular is really good, and in many respects feels like a natural, extension of the first movie. I just think they kind of shit the bed in the second half, and it like I said, by being so similar, it encourages unflattering comparisons at every turn. And it just by the second half, I'm just like, I wish I was watching the first film, and that's this film's biggest sin, is that it's not as good as the first film. I know Dave disagrees, but the first film is something of a masterpiece, I think. I genuinely think it is one of the best movies of the 80s. And no, this film isn't that good, but judged on its own merits, this is a fun watch, despite its faults. Like the sequence down, you mentioned earlier, the Winston down in the train station, that's really fun. I wish, if anything, they'd gone further with that. No, it wasn't for Winston. Yeah. But you still have the back and forth between the characters. It's a shame that Peter kind of gets sidetracked with the whole Dana thing, so he's not with the group. But you still have the SNL. I love it when they're digging the side of the road and the cops show up.
Yeah.
The pipes are over there. What the hell? It goes full SNL for a bit, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because it changes it, doesn't it? He's talking about all this shit, and then they said the pipes are over there, and he goes, "We've got a gas leak." This is my.
Where do you think all this equipment's coming from? The sky?
I don't know if it's more about me then, because I think this is a very serviceable sequel. I think it's good for the original. But I'm the same way.
It's your word exactly. It is serviceable.
But I'm the same way with, and you've already mentioned it on the socials this week. I like Predator 2. Against Predator 1. I think that's a great sequel. Not as good as the original, but I think it's a good sequel. I think it's a good film. So I don't know whether I'm forgiven of these sequels or anything because I love the original so much. But I still think this was a good watch. I really enjoyed it, and I watch it again. And I can't wait till my kid gets around about the age of Amelia now that I can get him to watch these things. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I think it's just important. It's just a matter of like how forgiving, like you said, you are of sequels. Like, are you going in expecting this to be as good as the first one? And it's the same with Predator 2. Predator 2 is a fun, flawed film. Is it as good as the first one? It's not even close. In the same way that Ghostbusters 2 is nowhere near as good as the first film. And that's the problem. Some people can't get over it. It's just like, oh, well, the first one was so good. This isn't as good. And it's like, no, it's not. But again, it comes back to, can you personally judge it on its own merits? And films like this and films like Predator 2, they're decent films. It's just they're always struggling with that comparison to, make no mistake, proper classics of 80s cinema. We are talking like... People have different views. I think I mentioned on, I think we covered Predator as our second podcast. I think it's one of the few perfect movies out there in terms of achieving what it sets out to do. It's the perfect B movie. And Ghostbusters almost sits in its own little category in terms of the tone and everything of that film. And in many respects, I wouldn't change a single cell of the first Ghostbusters film in the same way I wouldn't change anything about Predator. I think they're that good at what they do. So yeah, these films aren't as good, but they're better than a lot of other films, and certainly better than most sequels, that's for sure.
Yeah. We're probably going to need to move on, but
yeah,
I've got one thing I want to cover anyway. But have you got anything else you want to say before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Liam, anything else you want to say before we move on?
I've spoken plenty.
Right. So the one thing I wanted to mention, and I love doing these things, the one thing I can't let go of, like, I can't believe that people could hear them from the top of the Statue of Liberty. Like, they've got the music blaring, right? And then you go in, the words, sing along. Oh, you got the people going, what?
They've got speakers all over. I'm amazed. I gave you a list of all the reasons that the time towards the end of this film made no sense. That it's absolutely insane. Like, I don't think they can hear them from up there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's Gary Busey's Meatball Sub all over again.
It really is. It really is. Well, as always, what an odd way to finish our discussion of this film. So, favorite scenes. Dave, as you are the guest on this week's podcast, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think I've already said my favorite scene is the courtroom scene. I just think it's brilliant. They're all sort of down on their luck. Nothing's going right. And it's just the fact that the judge is so unhappy with them that he manages to kickstart their career again.
Yeah.
And the Scolari twins?
The Scolari brothers.
Scolari brothers.
Yeah.
Is it Harris Yulin? Is that his name as the judge? He is turning it up to fucking 11.
Oh, yeah.
He's loving being angry.
Yeah.
But you said there as well, I don't know if you or Liam said it, but I think it was you. The nuance of Venkman answering for Lewis, like, it's so good, and it's just so
it's the timing's perfect.
Yeah,
he's just whispering it just quietly, and he's just sort of shadowing it off him just a couple of seconds later, and then when he turns around, and goes, "What?" He just doesn't know what's going on. It's comedy gold, and like most of this film, I think Bill Murray absolutely nails it. And
like most of this film, and like most of, I guess, the original Ghostbusters, I don't think Bill Murray had a script.
There was probably hundreds of versions of that.
Yeah.
And I bet every single one of them is gold. But they thought, you know what, that's the one we're going with. And he must be amazing and an absolute fucking nightmare to work with, because you just never know what he's going to do you?
We said they'll be accustomed to it. At least, like, he is working with SNL alumni, so they'll be accustomed to working off the cuff, and that's what I think gives a lot of energy to the first film in particular. But, and it comes back to that tonal issue, is in the first film, because it's one of the things, like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, when we're recording this, the trailer's only just come out. And I saw a lot of people online complaining about the fact, it's like, oh, isn't this supposed to be a comedy? There should be more comedy. And it's like, well, if you go back and watch the first film, it's actually not. Basically, Peter Venkman's funny. Everyone else is playing it relatively straight. Sure, Ray's a bit of a goofball, and obviously Rick Moranis is playing broadly comic, but everyone else is playing it relatively straight. In this film, you get a bit more where everybody's trying to be a comedian. And I mean, you've got to be careful with that, because if you turn everyone in the film into a comedian, what you end up is Ghostbusters 2016, the Paul Feig edition, which is a fucking abomination. So you've got to be careful of, and I think that's the most important aspect of any Ghostbusters film, is getting that tone between genuine scares and the comedy, and not kind of having it run through the whole film.
That's interesting you say that. I agree with you completely. I think it's an abomination as well, but it's rated higher on IMDb than this film.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because there's all the narrative attached to it. It's like if anyone speaks ill of it, the immediate thought is because there's some fucking douchebags who hate women. The idea is that I hate this because there's women in it. I actually think one of the best things about the film is actually the cast. And I know some people disagree. I think the worst person in it is Chris Hemsworth. I think
You're wrong.
Disagree.
You're wrong.
Disagree.
You are so wrong.
That is he encapsulates everything that's wrong with that film. He is such a fucking buffoon. It just doesn't fit in a Ghostbusters film. But the women, I think, are fine. The issue, and it's not even Chris Hemsworth, the real issue is Paul Feig. Like, as soon as that film started and they had the opening sequence, it's like, oh, every character in this film is a comedian. That's not the Ghostbusters.
The real issue for that film is the CGI, is the cartoonish ghosts and things like that. I mean, for Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2, because it's not mainly, like, it is CGI, but there's also practical effects, things like that. But for 2016 one, it is just basically all CGI, and it doesn't look good. I mean, the original Garfield film, Bill Murray had better CGI of a cat than this did of the ghosts and things. I wasn't a fan of the CGI for it.
See, with that film, it's, like you said, people had issues with the fact it was an all-female cast. I like them all as actors. I think they're all quite funny. They're all decent actors. So I like the jokey side of it. You're right. It is totally completely different than to all of the other Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But it's just not a very good story. That's the issue I have with it. It's just not that interesting.
Yeah. Well,
it made me laugh. I'd watch it again. It's just not that good.
No, it's not. And like you said, because they don't give the characters like a proper narrative as they did in the original Ghostbusters film. You just got a bunch of women basically doing stand-up comedy or sketches kind of thing. But it means that they're all kind of like empty shells. They're just kind of like these caricatures and that's it. And then by the end of the film, you're kind of told you should care about them, but you just don't, obviously. So yeah, there's loads of problems with that film, but that's besides the point. But I am surprised to hear that.
Liam, favourite scene?
Favorite scene? Well, when I was younger, it was the Statue of Liberty sequence, especially when the higher and higher music kicks in. And I still think it's fantastic. But rewatching it, that sequence immediately then cuts to Lewis Tully coming out of the fire station dressed as a Ghostbuster, and I fucking hate that sequence. I absolutely hate it.
But is he
and then, of course, they force Slimer back into the movie for no apparent reason.
Again, for the reason of the real Ghostbusters, because in the cartoon he lives in the fire
pet.
He lives in the firehouse and becomes their pet. So they're trying to they're trying to make this kid orientated. So they got to bring him in somehow. So he becomes the bus driver.
Well, that's the thing. It speaks to the ill-conceived tone of this film. It's like it's got 1 foot. Like, part of this film is a sequel to the original film, and the other half of it feels like a sequel to the cartoon, and it just doesn't work. They just never mesh. But so rewatching it now, my favorite sequence is actually when they go to the underground train station. You know, the "Hello, Winston," that sequence. I think I mentioned it earlier. They could have pushed it more because it basically turns into a haunted house briefly, where you get all the heads on pikes. That's like a classic 80s cinema thing. Skeletons or heads on pikes, they just appear, like the Goonies, all that shit. So it used to scare the fuck out of us when we were like 7 years old as kids. I wish they'd pushed that a little bit further, perhaps. But that whole sequence I love. I just wish Peter was there as well, instead of like trying to get back with Dana again. I'm moaning again. I do apologize. So yeah, that's
for me, it's the digging in the middle of the street. I think that's a great scene because
it is great.
They're all bouncing off each other quite well. Unfortunately, again, Winston's not there. So randomly, they've just forgotten about Winston. But they just decided, there's something at the bottom of this street, so we're just going to go ahead and dig. We're not going to ask for permission. We're not going to do anything. We're going to, I don't know, rent a jackhammer or something. We're going to do it. And then when the copper shows up, your immediate thought is to go, well, I'll just let Pete do the talking. So they're walking across the thing and he sees him and he just goes, boss, and then they just start talking in this like mad New York accent, and I think it's great.
But
and
it is very much
shows Venkman as well, like because they're talking about this, and then they go away. They've talked the copper to go away, so then they dangle Ray down there, and then they pull Ray up, and they come back and they go, well, the lines are over there. And he's just talking. I've already said. And he goes, he just without even missing a beat, he goes, there's a gas leak. I mean, it doesn't fucking work because they go to court. But I think it's great. I think it shows the comic timing of them and the way they all bounce off each other. I think it's really good.
Yeah. Again, like we mentioned earlier, kind of, speaks to their SNL background. And that sequence in particular feels like a sketch.
Yeah.
It's like narrative. You kind of do need it in the film because Ray like goes down obviously into the, see the slime and all that jazz. But, having that whole sequence is just like, we've got a bunch of funny people. Let's just have this instead. And yeah, it is an awesome sequence.
Yeah. Loves? Dave?
Okay, so Bill Murray, absolutely the best part of all these films for me. Second, loves the one-liners. I think there's some cracking little one-liners that come out in this film.
Harold Ramis gets a few, actually, when he's talking about toys. When it's like, my parents didn't believe in toys. It's like, can you have a slinky?
Like, we had the parts for slinky. I straightened it out.
Fucking awesome.
So you had wire.
The one that stood out for me is when Bill Murray goes into the art gallery and he's like, I know what's wrong with Vigo. Carpathian kitten loss. And he's trying to draw a little kitten in there.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh. And like I said earlier, just Egon coming out of his shell and getting to see a little bit more of him than just the straight guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Liam?
Number one, Jackie Wilson and Howard Hunsberry, Higher and Higher. Like, I still love that song to this day. And it's literally the perfect song for that. Both, obviously, the toaster sequence, which everybody loves. But if you are trying to find an uplifting song to get the city behind you, absolutely. What was I going to say? Number two, the Vigo painting. It's really ballsy to make the guy a painting. And to speak to Dave's point earlier, he looks awesome as a painting. You guys gave each other a funny look then. What about
you kind of disappeared. You went a bit robotic, so we didn't know what you were saying. Sorry.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So
the painting. The fact that they make the bad guy a painting for most of the film is a really ballsy choice. And as a painting, as Dave mentioned earlier, he looks amazing. When he gets out the painting, not so much. First, you have the issue. When he gets out the painting, there's a brief sequence with his hair. Suddenly gets very big, and then suddenly becomes very sleek again.
He's been volumized.
And then the whole bit about when they're trying to get Ray out the way at the end, it's like, no, I am not Ray, it is I, Vigo. And he turns around and he looks so fucking lame in his like demon head mode. All that just looks like Vigo, I actually think, is pretty lame, other than when he's a painting. But when he's a painting, he's fucking awesome. Yeah. Number three, the idea of the Ghostbusters going out of business. I feel like they should have maybe run with that a bit longer, but I thought it was a great premise for the start of the film. And I'm going to sneak this in quickly as number four. Most of the cast, which will lead me to my hates in a moment. So yes, most of the cast.
Yeah, for me, the core cast as well. I think they're great together. I think we've already mentioned a few times the SNL things. And I think when Winston is in there, which is going to lead me to a hate, but when Winston is in there, I think he does really, really well, bouncing off him as well. Same with Dana. I think it's great. I love the soundtrack, as we've already said. And yes, the only thing, when you were saying how to get New York together, I mean, they missed a thing, didn't they? Not having New York, as they were walking with the Statue of Liberty. But I know Higher and Higher is a good second choice. I'll give you that.
Dude, honestly, I've been listening to Jackie Wilson all week. I've gone on a Spotify rabbit hole with Jackie Wilson because of the song. And yeah, needless to say, all of his songs are bangers, or at least he has a lot of bangers.
Yeah. And I've got to go with you as well. Like, the one-liners, I think, are great. I immediately thought of you with that gynecological one.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, because I know how much you love Sigourney Weaver, or you love Sigourney Weaver. Who wouldn't want to do a gynecological? Do you know what I mean? So, I think it's really good. I do. I'm a huge fan of. I'm a big fan of this film. I think it's a great film.
So I kind of cut away and I heard you talking about gynecology. And then when I put my earphones back on, I say, I'm a big fan of it. He's not going to say gynecology, is he? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, gynecological-based comedy.
Yeah, I take my earphones off for 2 seconds and Jesus Christ. In terms of hates, do you want to list yours, Dave?
Yeah, it's probably a common one. Janosch. The guy's creepy, weird, and clowny.
Yep.
We'll probably leave it there. The second one is the mayor's aide. I mean, that guy is a douchebag in everything I've ever seen him in. And basically all I can think of is in Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Kurt Fuller, yeah. As we said, Kurt Fuller is like a douchebag, but he's a second-rate douchebag in comparison to William Atherton.
Yeah.
And again, it's that same vibe again, that everything in this film is good, but not as good as the first film.
And I really struggled to come up with a third one. And I think my third hate is watching a film that you really like with a 9-year-old rabbiting on your ear. What should I be writing? Why are they doing that, Dad? What's going on? So thanks for that.
I love the idea that she's just saying,
can she be on the podcast?
Didn't expect you to say yes.
Yeah. Well, next time I'm going to make her pick another film. A film you love, right? Absolutely. I'm going to get her to do.
I just love the idea that she's like picking it apart and going, this just isn't nearly as good as the first one. It's like, Jesus Christ, my 9-year-old daughter's got much better taste than me.
You're ruining my childhood.
Bless her, though. I haven't got the heart to tell her, but she thinks she's going to be super famous from being on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we're there yet, dude. In terms of my hates, so number one, the rest of the cast, Rick Moranis, sacrilegious to say it, but Lois Tully can absolutely do it in this film. They just overdo his idea. And as I said, the first film, he's supposed to be a figure of fun, whereas in this, he's supposed to be lovable, not having it. Also, Peter McInall as Janosch, you already mentioned it. I think it speaks to the confused tone of the film. Number two, the second half really is a poor man's telling of the first half. And number three, when Vigo is not in the painting, the whole I, Ray, am Vigo, or whatever the fuck it is, I think that whole sequence is dog shit. And I think any sense of him being threatening is lost the moment he steps out of the painting and his hair starts doing inconsistent, fluffy, volumistic things. Volumistic, I'm not sure if that's a word. You get what I'm going for. So those are my hates.
I want to sneak another love in quickly. How Vigo died, I think is great. He died at 105. Yeah, good in this. No, he didn't die of old age. He died of being hung, drawn, quartered. I thought that was great. They just listed up everything, how he died.
Yeah, and he did, in fairness, right? Ghostbusters has an issue with bad guys, bad girls, because, again, you take away, everyone remembers the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the first film. Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I think does try to mirror the tone of the first movie much more closely, but it makes the mistake of going, oh, everyone loves Gozer, so they go back to Gozer. No, Gozer was always shit. Yeah. Gozer was always terrible. What made Gozer interesting was the crossing of the streams and Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You remove those things, and Gozer was like an 80s supermodel, I don't know.
Although I was a big fan
queen. It just
I was a big fan of Gozer in the third film because it was Olivia Wilde.
Okay. She still looked weird, man. Like there was no threat there, and I think there's a similar issue with Vigo towards the end of this film.
So for me, my hates, I'm going to match you to Janosch, especially when he became the weird flying nun thing.
Yeah, in his defense, he does have a couple of genuinely funny moments, but for most of the film, he's just quite annoying.
Yeah, the amount of time it takes to set up the Statue of Liberty compared to like how long they've got between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day seems very, very strange to me.
Well, to say it's suspect would be a massive understatement. It's impossible. It doesn't make... As soon as you stop and think about it for a second, like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. If it was like, I don't know, they were stuck in the museum on Christmas Day maybe, and they said, listen, we've got to get this done before New Year's. Maybe. Maybe. I'm not giving them 2 hours. Fucking forget about it.
And finally, the lack of Winston. Winston not being in the core parts, they just... I don't know, he was there at the beginning for a little bit. Then when they were actually just becoming the Ghostbusters again, he wasn't there. And then they brought him back. And then, I don't know,
he is sidelined. At least he's on the poster this time around. So that is something.
But yeah, that's my third. That's
cool. Any alternative titles for this? Or is it called Ghostbusters 2 everywhere?
No, there's a couple of alternative titles, he says as he starts looking for them. Right.
Not prepared.
Estonia Ghost Catchers 2.
So I assume the first film was just called Ghost Catchers then.
Oh, well, I would assume so, but...
Yeah.
Finland, Ghost Gang 2.
Okay, Ghost Gang 2. This is terrible, yeah.
France, Phantom SOS 2.
Jesus Christ. This is really interesting because this is a relatively new thing we've added to the podcast. So when we recorded Ghostbusters, we didn't do alternative titles.
No, we didn't do alternative.
So I guess we're simultaneously finding out what are the alternative titles for Ghostbusters.
I love this. I hope this is true, but it's obviously a problem with the translation. Hong Kong, Cantonese, the sequel to Ghostbusters.
I hope that's true. I really hope that's true. That's fantastic.
Did I already say Ghost Hunters? I might have already said that one. What else have we got here? Taiwan, Devil's Buster 2.
That's terrible.
Yep. And then there was just a working title from the United States and The Last of the Ghostbusters.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that was a working
title
that never asked.
Yeah.
That's it.
Fair enough. Any facts? I'm sure there are a bunch of facts. So do you want to pick your favourites?
I will once I get it because I put my phone down. I forgot that was my next.
You've only done this 137 times.
Are we on 137?
Yeah, we're on 137.
In the years between Ghostbusters and this film, the real Ghostbusters introduced the idea that Slimer was living at the firehouse as the Ghostbusters' pet. Because the original film and the cartoon series was so popular with children, they put Slimer in the film.
Boo.
Yeah. We already said Max von Sydow covered that.
Is it Max von Sydow or Max von Sydow?
I always say Sydow, but I don't know.
Well, no, you don't, because you said Sydow just then.
Usually I always say it. The one thing I had as well, did we see Bill Murray's brother was a psychiatrist in the mental hospital?
Oh, yeah, good chat.
Yeah. Brian Doyle Murray. After the release of this film, Lewis Tully was added into the real Ghostbusters cast. So,
yeah,
nightmare.
Not a fan of it.
The New York police officers that received the report of the Titanic's arrival says the call is coming from Pier 34. In real life, that was the ship's original destination. We didn't even mention that was Cheech Marin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we totally forgot that. That's a really weird cameo. Which is really weird.
Expected him to just shout at all the Titanic people coming off, pussy, pussy, pussy.
It was this cool little moment. Better late than never. He has a little line, but it's just like, yeah. Honestly, as I was saying that, I was like, don't let it sound Irish.
The large Vigo painting is actually a photograph and hangs in the offices at the Industrial Light and Magic. I'm not too sure.
I would legitimately love to have that framed in my house.
I'm sure I would.
Awesome. All right, it'd be so cool.
What else have we got here? Oh, the scene involving a woman's mink coat coming to life was originally written and storyboarded for the original film, where it was meant to be set on a fashion show runway.
Oh, cool.
I'm guessing they cut that out, obviously. These are too long. Yeah, I'm going to keep going for forever on these. So, yeah, we'll end it there.
End of it, fair enough. In terms of the legacy, we already mentioned it, but this really did kill the franchise for nearly 30 years. Decent box office, but basically Murray was done with it.
Did it kill the franchise, though? Because the real Ghostbusters still kept going.
Not for long, though. Like, it ran for 7 seasons, but it was done by, 1991. And as I said, I look back and I remember liking this film, but I think it must have done for me because I had the toys, I watched the cartoons, but then all of a sudden it just wasn't a thing. I remember it just not being a thing anymore. And I think the important thing was that there just wasn't another film. And it's interesting going back. It's not for a lack of interest. It wasn't because a lack of box office, because this film, it wasn't as big as it hit as the first film, but it was a solid hit. It was just Bill Murray didn't want to do it, so they didn't go ahead with it.
That's it. So it's really weird. Bill Murray didn't want to do it because he disliked this film. But does that mean this film killed the franchise, or Bill Murray killed the franchise?
Yeah, but Bill Murray killed it because of this film. I think the two are intrinsically linked. Basically, when I think of this film, it's very much the Spider-Man 3 of the 80s. Like, Spider-Man 3 killed the Sam Raimi trilogy. They were going to make a 4th film, but after the 3rd film, nobody wanted to make another one. But it's interesting because if you go back and see the box office for Spider-Man 3 was massive. It was a huge hit, but everyone was just like, we don't want to do another one. It's just like, from not a critical perspective, from a inventive perspective, I'm trying to think of a better word. It's not that, but they all just kind of lost interest in it. And I think that's what happened with this. It's like, I don't think Bill Murray, if he really liked the film, would have been like, no more Ghostbusters. I mean, he might have. It was Bill Murray in the 80s. But I think it was like, he wasn't a massive fan of the film and just like, let's just kind of leave it be. Whereas everyone else obviously wanted to make a 3rd film. Creative process. That was the word I was looking for. Creative. In many respects, it is a textbook example of how not to do a remake. Despite its charms, it should have been so much better, I think. And the biggest issue is, again, like as I mentioned earlier, is that it copies so much of the first film. It's only towards the latter half of the film, I just wish they had done something a little bit different rather than running back the first film, which you see in so many sequels, and I just don't think it ever really works.
It's interesting because I don't see that as being a problem for this film.
No.
I think it's a massive problem with sequels. I'm like, why are you just making a poorer... It's like, what was it? Terminator 3. Terminator 3 is actually got some really cool set pieces in it. Like, the sequence with the truck is unbelievable. But basically, it's just, remember Terminator 2? It's that, but not as good. It's like,
with terrible casting.
Yeah. Terrible casting. But they've done it in so many sequels.
You like the Metal Man? Liquid Metal Man? We got a Liquid Metal Woman now.
With a solid metal woman in it.
Yeah, it's ludicrous how many sequels do that. They just don't have, do something different. Anyway, doesn't matter. It all inadvertently led to Paul Feig's dumpster fire of Ghostbusters 2016. We already mentioned that and why it didn't work. It'll be interesting to see if this gets any nods in Frozen Empire after Afterlife when full Force Awakens. Again, I keep mentioning the Force Awakens thing. Afterlife did it in a different way. It was so beholden to nods to the first film. It didn't take the same, even though it had Ghost in it. It was big on going, remember the first film? Remember the first film? I'd be interested if Frozen Empire does a few throwbacks to Ghostbusters 2 because, as we mentioned, it wasn't up to the time, but I feel like public opinion had shifted on Ghostbusters 2 a little bit. I mean, it's running at 6.6 on IMDb, which is relatively decent, right? It's not terrible.
Well, the original Ghostbusters is only 7.1, so...
Is it really?
Yeah.
I thought it would have been much higher. That's absolutely insane. I already mentioned earlier, established the core but ultimately forgotten slate grey suits. And yeah, one of the 80s best needle drops. The Statue of Liberty, the whole Huntsbury thing, higher and higher. The bit when the flame explodes, that bit was cool.
How, though? How?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, none of it makes sense. But I was sitting there.
That's the least far-fetched part of it. Come on.
I know. I was sitting there with a shitting grin on my face, in fairness. But so that's what I've got down for legacy. If you're going to make one change to it, again, only one change for this film, I'm going to jump straight in and say I would just pay back the goofy comedy. Like, that's my big issue with this film. So if I was going to, one thing, Tully, all that stuff, the goofier side of the comedy, I'd get rid of it.
Oh. Mine will be really quick. So before you take Janosch out, I'm assuming that's what's happening.
Janosch has to go. Well, he's actually been wiped out as part of the goofy comedy sequence. So yeah, Janosch can get to fuck as well.
More Winston. Like, I just feel like they've done him dirty. So just write Winston in there a bit more. And then,
to see, I think the two are intrinsically linked. Get rid of the goofy characters, all that shit which isn't required, and give Winston more to do. Give him more of a character arc. The time is there. So yeah. Goofy comedy, fuck off. More Winston, please.
Dave, one change?
It is, yeah. I wouldn't take him out completely. I think the film needed him there. I just didn't like him as a character.
Okay.
He just gave me the ick, you know? But what I would do is take out the stupid fucking flying nanny scene.
Yeah,
that's a great shout.
There must be a way of him coming to take the child that's creepy but menacing without making you think, what's going on? This is fucking weird.
If he was starting to be a bit more possessed and not just, well, no, to be fair, because it starts off him being kind of hypnotized, but then he's got these powers, and like you said, he's got these eye lights and things.
Pointless eye lights, yeah.
You'd have him being some sort of, from the, I guess,
demonize him a bit.
Yeah, not for because Liam doesn't like copying the first film, but some sort of like demonic monster thing that can scale the wall.
Dog.
Yeah, not a dog.
Obviously, maybe some kind of gorilla or something.
Yeah, no, it can't be a gorilla.
Oh no,
can't be Ghostbusters.
Damn it!
But like scaling the wall instead of just flying with a weird pushchair and grabbing the baby, he just comes up. And...
The one thing I would say about that scene, though, is that really shows its age because the music is. It's so close to being commando level drums. So the like not quite steel pan, but you know, and it was so 80s.
Yeah,
it's just weird because it's interesting you mentioned that sequence because despite my criticisms of this film, they're nearly always they're just minor disappointments. As I said, I enjoy this film, and especially when it's different when I'm being actively critical for a podcast. If I'm just watching it, I'm like, yeah, I wish they hadn't run back so much to the first film, but it's still fun. The only part of this film which I actively dislike is the Janosch dressed as the nanny. And even Janosch, for the most part, he's fine.
Yeah,
he's a bit too goofy, he's a bit too broad, but he adds a bit of levity, whatever. I don't hate him, he just exists. I could he not be in the film? Whatever. But the sequence where he's the nanny, I never liked it. I didn't like it as a kid, and I don't like it now.
You like his fanboying over Vigo. Every time he talks about it's Vigo!
Vigo.
Loving it, like it's not Vigo, it's Vigo!
No, you must be leaving now. See, all of a sudden, we're doing these little bits. I'm like, Janosch is okay.
Yeah.
In terms of video games, there were 3 versions of Ghostbusters 2. There was a home computer versions that was published by Activision for various platforms by British studio Forcefields. Jesus Christ, that's a word. Who developed versions for the Commodore 64, the Amiga, Atari, and ZX Spectrum. There was also a version ported to the MSX by New Frontier. For those who don't know, the MSX was a home computer for the Japanese market. It wasn't very good. The more interesting side of the Ghostbusters video game discussion is that there were 2 versions for the NES. So there was a really rubbish Activision version developed by Imagineering, primarily for the US market, which was a side-scrolling one, horrible visuals. You could go in Ecto 1 as well, but it didn't play well, it didn't look good. But there was another version developed by HAL Laboratories for Japan and the European market. That was awesome, and that was the version I had growing up. It had like really great chibi visuals. So even though they were little cartoon versions, you could totally tell which character was which. It was top down, and you just went from room to room, basically shooting the ghosts and trapping them. Nearly all of them looked like Slimer, due to the limitations of the technology in 1989. But it's weird that America got this terrible version from Activision, But then for Japan and Europe had this awesome version for HAL Laboratories, which leads me to, if I was going to have a modern-day Ghostbusters 2 game, I would just want them to re-release the HAL Laboratories version from back in 1989, because it was really good. If you just tidied it up, maybe, you could up-res the visuals to a certain extent, but I'd largely love to go back and play that game, because it's been lost to the sands of time. Just make sure it's the European and Japanese version, not the terrible American version.
For me, the only way I could see this working is like if you went down to the arcade on Saturday night, like you do with the Alien game, where you pick up the actual pulse rifle. I'd love to pick up, the only way I can describe this is like the proton pack wand, and aiming it at the big screen and shooting them down. Yeah. I'd want it like proper. I can't have it on a console. I want it, and it'd be a first person where you're just going through, I don't know, New York City or wherever, just taking ghosts out. That's
well, kind of like
it working.
I think it was Sega did a Rambo trilogy video game back in I think it was like 2010, 2011. I might be getting the year wrong. But basically it was just that. Instead, obviously, you had a machine gun, but it was all a big, huge arcade machine. And you just basically went through vague scenes from each film in the trilogy, and you just shot down millions of people. It didn't make any sense narratively. And you could do the same here. You would just go through the two films, go through famous sequences. In this film, you'd obviously have a sequence where you're in a courtroom and you have to trap thousands of ghosts. Of course, it's not exact same as film, but it would still be awesome. So yeah,
can you imagine seeing those big screens and being on top of a building and shooting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man as he's coming? I think it'd be good. But you could even have a bit where like it's kind of conveying the idea that you're standing or on top of Ecto 1, so you're driving through the city. Yeah, but you're still just shooting at ghosts. So, well, that'd be the rumble seat, wouldn't it, from the third film?
Yeah. Exactly.
You could jump out of Ecto 1 and start shooting. I think it's called Rumble.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was nice.
But that would be for me. So I don't know if we've got a winner this week for the arcade games, because well, the thing is, if you have any fond memories of the Chibi inspired 1989 NES original, you'd probably be like, well, that's pretty cool. But in terms of a genuine new idea, yes, you win again. In terms of scores and recommendations, this one's a really easy one for me, because I would recommend it. But in many respects, this to me is the ultimate 3-star film. I didn't even have to think about it. It's 3 stars from beginning to end, but it's a hugely recommended 3 stars because it's super fun. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just not great. It's just a 3-star fun film. Recommended. Go watch it. Forget about it. Get on with your life. Forget about it.
Forget about it.
That was a
New York film.
Right, Dave.
I'm going 4 stars. I really struggle to give sort of comedy or slightly funny films more than 4 stars. I don't know. I just don't think there's necessarily enough to them. But I would recommend this to anyone, especially slightly older kids. If they've got kids to watch. I mean, this is a typical 80s PG. There's quite a lot of swearing in it. And quite rude jokes, as it turns out. But it's fine. It goes over their heads.
It's not quite as rude as the first one. Like the first one, again, I mentioned last week the whole idea there are certain things in your life which mean you've grown up. And I mentioned pulping my orange juice and eating olives. I was like, I'm eating olives. I'm a grown-up. One of the other parts was seeing Ghostbusters and suddenly getting the sexy jokes. This had, maybe because I haven't watched Ghostbusters 2 for a while, but rewatching it now, I was like, I never got the epididymis joke. Like, I was just like, God damn, that is fucking filth. I
never really thought. Because you never got honestly, the fucking joke until we watched Ghostbusters 1 again for this podcast. Because I remember you going, I didn't know that was about fucking the Keymaster and the key.
Yeah. Well, right. For the longest time, I think literally inside watching this time, when they said, oh, you're sleeping with the slime, I thought they meant sleeping with the slime. Yeah. As in, oh, good night, I'm sleeping next to them. Like, oh, sleeping next to the slime. How lame are you? I didn't think for a second he was fucking the slime.
Like the look on his face said it all.
It's like when you asked if you can have some peanut butter from a friend and you open it up and just the middle's gone.
Does that happen? Jesus Christ.
Don't ask Wes for peanut butter. That's all I'm saying.
Jesus Christ, man. He must have the constitution of a fucking lion. Like, there's not much give in that stuff. You'd really have to ram it home, wouldn't you? I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway,
that was a joke. You're thinking about it a bit too much.
Well, I don't know if you're joking, if it's true. I don't even know if people are fucking peanut butter jars. Anyway, let's move on indeed. Yeah. So, scores and recommendations, sir?
I'm going to play devil's advocate. It's 3.5.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Because I think I gave the original maybe 4. Like you, with comedies, there's not much to push them over the edge. Once you've got the jokes out of the way, especially the jokes you missed as a kid, there's not much more to the jokes and things like that. So take the comedy out of it. What have you got? So I think it's a good film still. It's a decent story. It's 3.5.
Again, that speaks to the difference between this and the first film. I think if you remove the comedy from the first film, I think it still works as a drama.
Yeah, I think it's still a good film, yeah.
And this film, you take away the jokes, there's not much left. Dave's right, there's not much left. So, yeah. 3.5,
it's a great recommendation. I would highly recommend it. Especially, like you say, I'm waiting for my kid to grow up now so I can get him to watch these films.
I'm still waiting for you to grow up.
I'm waiting for my kid to age a bit more.
There we go.
Rob's going to be like, I've finally grown up. I've started wearing full-length jeans. 72 years old.
It's never going to happen.
I was going to say,
day,
I'm not going
to. Honestly, if I saw him, if he was walking down the street and he was wearing full-length jeans and I don't know, a shirt, I mean, what the fuck is happening?
He couldn't even go his entire wedding night with full-length trousers on.
I would assume he was going to court. I'm like, he's going to court for a pretty serious sexual allegation. That's the only thing I could think.
You would have had a panic. On Thursday, I had to go to London to my office, first time ever. Jeans and a shirt.
Oh my days!
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, it felt weird.
I would have been like, dude, the cops finally caught with you, did they?
I'm not. And again, I'm not a grown-up because I don't like pulp and I don't like olives.
Well, there we go. All right, so that's been Ghostbusters 2. Next week, 137 episodes in, and we somehow haven't covered one of the most important and iconic movies of the 80s. In many respects, it is aged like a fine wine. In others,
well,
not so much.
Yes,
I am, of course, referring to 1988's Big, starring Tom Hanks, a movie with a number of very interesting talking points, to say the least.
No, boo, because I thought it was Garbage Pail Kids.
Ironically, my
Boo's big. I mean, Jesus Christ, everyone was big.
My daughter recently put my suit jacket on, and I took some pictures of it, and it is exactly like the end of Big,
just without the weird sexual connotations.
Yes,
yeah, rightfully,
which we will get to next week. So, yes,
I'm looking forward to this. Haven't seen Big for a while, but I mean,
I'm amazed it's taken this long.
You can never go wrong with Tom Hanks. Actually, we've never done a Tom Hanks film.
No, we have. We did Burbs pretty early.
Fuck, we have done a Tom Hanks film.
We haven't done many. Yeah, but when you look back at the 80s, it really would. We haven't done too many comedies. And most of his films back in the 80s are comedies. Like, what are we going to do? Joe versus the Volcano? Fucking maybe Dragnet one day. That might be kind of fun.
I'd like to do Dragnet. Dragnet's on my list. And we got to do Splash. We're not doing Splash.
No, we're not doing Splash. And we're not doing Saving Private Ryan just because Dave loves fucking war films. So it would just be too depressing. You know?
Dude, so I want to do Saving Private Ryan.
No fucking way. I've been to Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be tough. So is that everything before we wrap this shit up?
No, just want to thank Amelia again for picking it and joining the podcast. I hate to break it to her, she's not going to become famous. But
unless we turn the corner,
thanks
really
for joining us, Dave, and speaking on Amelia's behalf and your behalf.
As always, thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Oh, cheers. Okay, I've been Liam, this has been Rob, that has been Dave, and you've been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
And it was also Amelia.
Sorry, Amelia. Jesus. Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.